Good morning and happy Saturday. Welcome in. This is the Saturday Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Look at that, Alex. Did you see that earlier in the week, that Cooper Flag poster?
I did. I've been keeping kind of an eye on Cooper Flag for obvious reasons, potentially the number one overall pick. And so we're still in capture the flag mode for the Utah Jazz, keeping an eye on him.
Got ESPN up on the studio TV, and they're showing Cooper Flag's monster posterizer dunk from earlier this week. He's had a really, really good freshman year for Duke. So, yeah, definitely a player
Fantastic.
to keep an eye on for our personal selfish reasons. But, Alex, how was your week?
It was good, man. Highlight of my week, I will probably say I got to do a lot of high school basketball this week. Had 3 games. Got to go out there and call 3 different games this week, and so we're starting region play here for Utah Hoops, local Utah Hoops, and it's fun, man. It's fun being out there and seeing the talent pool as well on the hoop side of things.
Yeah, any good ones? Any good games?
I really like Davis this year.
Yeah.
Davis High School has a really good basketball team.
See, wait, that's biased because you live up there.
No, it's not biased. It's not biased at all. I have no affiliation. I have no. I am not associated to Davis High School in any way, shape, or form. But Davis High's basketball team has been locked in this season. They're fun to watch.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I called some high school basketball in college for a little bit down there in southern Utah. But I do think the product is getting better and better every year.
It really is.
And there are a lot of really good athletes.
It really is.
We spent a lot of time during the football season talking about the high school football athletes and how that talent pool is continuing to grow. But basketball is right there, too. I mean,
100%.
We're not seeing a ton of professionals yet, but as far as just the floor of these high school games, I mean, they are really, really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, we talk about how much the high school football talent has grown over the course of the last couple of years, and I could say the same exact thing for basketball. The more and more I call basketball games too, the more talent we see coming, or the more talent you can see start to take with some of these Utah guys.
There you go, Sean. You got a highlight?
Yeah, I got to see my buddy's band.
Okay,
It was pretty fun.
did he go and play it at like a bar or something? Or
Yeah, exactly. It's called Metro Music Hall.
Okay.
First time I'd been there. It's kind of nice. It was a good time, though.
There
Got
you
to
go.
see some friends.
Can we say bar on the radio?
I think so.
Okay, just making sure.
Should I have dumped that?
No, don't dump it. Oh, Duke's playing
It's a
right
joke.
now.
It's a joke.
Okay, that's why Duke was on the TV. Duke is playing Notre Dame. Well, nice. Speaking of Notre Dame, that would be my highlight of the week. I'm not a Notre Dame fan by any means. I am Catholic, though, so I will
That's biased.
join the bandwagon for the playoffs. Like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight, but Thursday night I got together with some friends and we went to a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, nice.
And they had the Notre Dame and Penn State game up on the TV, and it was the food is not great. But,
What? No.
But
No.
I like it, but it's always cold.
No.
But the environment is unmatched. Like going and watching a college football playoff game at the B-Dubs, and I mean it was a great game, and we'll get more into this game here in a little bit, but it seemed like everybody in the restaurant was going for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And like I said, like kind of joking but half joking, I'm like, yeah, I'll go for Notre Dame too. So every time that they made a big play, like the whole restaurant was cheering, and it was pretty cool. It was a fun place to be. I would highly recommend, if you're not one to go out to like a sports bar. I mean, I know Buffalo Wild Wings is kind of similar to that, but they also are known for their food. So
I like their wings.
they're good. Like I said, it seems like every time I go, it's cold, but I keep going back because it's more about being there.
Yes, it's they're not like the top quality wings, right? I think there's other wing places that are better, but the vibes, man, vibes are unmatched.
Right.
And that's why I love B-Dubs.
It was a lot of fun. So
Good.
that would be my highlight of the week. And let's stay on this, Alex. Let's keep
Absolutely.
talking college football. The semifinals games are over. The college football playoff championship game is set. Notre Dame will be playing Ohio State. Let's go back to this Notre Dame game, though. They beat Penn State 27-24 on Thursday night, and there are a couple of takeaways First off, I think my biggest takeaway is that Notre Dame's running back, Jeremiah Love, is a grown man. That touchdown run that he had is one of the more impressive plays that I've seen. And it was only like maybe a 5 or 6 yard touchdown run. It wasn't very long, but I mean, he had to go through dang near the whole defense, right? And I think that just shows when you get to, the semifinals in the college football playoff, like that's how bad some of these guys want it. And I thought that was a really good touchdown run by him and a great job by the Fighting Irish to get it done.
For me, I think the thing that stood out the most is I think I can confidently and positively say now that Notre Dame, to me, has the best defense in college football.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. That's a take.
Yes. I really liked the toughness of that defense. I think is probably the best in college football. And it's a big reason why the Fighting Irish are now in the national championship.
Toughness, but then also the ability to make plays when it matters.
Absolutely.
They had a key interception, obviously, to seal the game. But they also had another big interception that was called off by a pass interference call. I thought it was a little ticky-tack. But, yeah, I mean, they were giving Drew Aller and Penn State fits all night long. So, I mean, Notre Dame, that is definitely the heart and soul of their team, is their defense. Their offense isn't uber productive. So it will be interesting to see how they match up against an Ohio State that, as we saw from last night's game, Ohio State can score from anywhere. But another take that I've gotten, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, I think the college football playoff has exposed some of these quarterbacks. Alex, Drew Aller is a quarterback that I've seen a lot of hype for. Some people were saying he should have gone out of the draft this year. Some people are saying he should come back to college football and be the first quarterback taken next year.
No.
This guy sucks.
Yes.
12 of 23, 135 yards, and a boneheaded interception to lose the game for his team. And you want him to be the first quarterback drafted next year?
No. And I mean,
listen, that's a little harsh, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that was.
No. It's a good take. It's a good take because I agree with you to the fact that I remember before the season started, there was a lot of questions about Drew Aller, and coming into the season, I thought he kind of silenced those critics a little bit, but then all of a sudden we're talking about him being one of the best, if not the best, in college football, right? Going along with the Shadors and the Ewers and whatever, but I didn't see it, man. I don't see it.
No, and it's especially worrying in a big game like this. This is the semifinals in the college football playoff. This is a big deal, and for Drew Aller to just completely, practically no show is a little worrying for Penn State. And I mean, listen, 13-3, great record on the year, and it's nice that they made it to the semifinals. And sure, he's a lot better at football than I'll ever be, but I get the privilege to sit here and talk about him on the radio
and say he sucks.
Yeah, so maybe coming back will do him some good. Maybe he'll come back and really improve. And I guess that is why you would come back instead of going to the draft this year, because maybe he is just not ready. But I have not been all that impressed with college quarterbacks this year.
Haven't been impressed with Riley Leonard either.
No,
but I thought he did a really good job bouncing back against that Georgia team. He only had 96 passing yards.
Right, but that's. Like, Riley Leonard was never going to be one of the top quarterbacks. He doesn't have that same hype. And, they win with their defense, right? They don't ask Riley Leonard to do a whole lot. But I agree with you as far as, coming down to the championship game, Riley Leonard versus Will Howard, who you got, right?
Right. And that's going to be a big topic of conversation going into this upcoming week as we head to the national championship, because I remember at the beginning of the season too, there was a lot of doubt towards Will Howard as well.
Yeah, a lot of doubt everywhere. I think looking across the landscape of college football, obviously Cam Ward and Shador Sanders are the two top quarterbacks in this year's draft, but there really has not been a quarterback that blows everybody away. The top talent is not there at quarterback right now in college football. So I am curious to see who steps up and takes that mantle next year, whether it is somebody like Drew Aller who comes back as a senior and really improves, or maybe it's a player that hits the transfer portal and is with a new team and is able to find some success there. But overall, I think that is where I'm at as far as quarterbacks in college football right now. There just isn't, the superstars that there traditionally is.
Right.
And I don't know what the reason for that is, but either way, it's true.
It's all this extra eligibility.
It could be.
It's just messed up our timelines.
It definitely could be. Carson Beck, by the way, former Georgia quarterback, he transferred to Miami. I'm interested to see how that goes because, again, he was another player that I was never impressed with.
I honestly did not expect that one coming or see that one coming.
$4 million.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's, man, I'm in the wrong business.
That's how much
That's how much a crappy quarterback can get you.
If $4 million gets you a crappy quarterback, how much do you have to pay for a good quarterback?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it pays to be a mid college football quarterback. Speaking of mid college football quarterbacks, Quinn Ewers is another player that I have been tremendously disappointed with, and I think he was exposed in this college football playoff run.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but coming into this season, Quinn Ewers was the Heisman frontrunner. He was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the face of college football.
And then
he's on the cover of EAF or EA College Football or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But he's been disappointing.
I talk about draft prospects, NFL draft prospects. Who are people talking about as, oh yeah, watch out for this player. He'll probably be the top quarterback drafted. And that was Quinn Ewers before the season started, as you mentioned. And coming into the season, I mean, he was hurt a lot, which you can't really blame him for.
That is true.
But at the same time, when he was playing, I feel like maybe he did a couple times. I wasn't that tuned into Texas, but he didn't really have a signature moment where it was like Texas football won this game because of Quinn Ewers, right? If they didn't have Quinn Ewers, they wouldn't have won this game. And to that point, they got near the same level of production from Arch Manning when he played. And Quinn did have some good throws last night. And he I'm thinking about that, whether it was a third or fourth down where he scrambled and lowered his shoulders and picked up a tough first down. Good play by Quinn Ewers. But overall, again, comparing to the amount of hype that he had before the season, he has had a disappointing season. And they come in and 14 points in the college football playoff semifinals.
It's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
It's not good enough from a guy who was supposed to be the face of college football.
He was one of the highest rated recruits in a very long time, if I remember right. He was the number one overall recruit. And
that's right.
I mean, first off, they would not shut up about how he used to go to Ohio State for like half a year or whatever. Did you watch the game? Or I mean,
did.
I know you watched the game, but did you hear that on the broadcast?
I did hear that. It was probably...
That's all they cared about.
That was probably the most ran with storyline all week
Quinn
long.
Ewers against his former team. Give me a break.
But Quinn Ewers going to Texas, and you got to give him credit for helping Coach Sarkisian, and getting the program back to being a powerhouse. Because I think Texas, before Coach Sarkisian came in, was struggling. He comes in, he gets Quinn Ewers in the transfer portal, and then boom, all of a sudden Texas is now one of the best teams in college football. I want to give him all the credit in the world for doing that, but this season did not go the way Quinn Ewers wanted it to, and I would not be surprised if Quinn Ewers doesn't stay on the draft boards.
So that's an interesting point, because a couple of weeks ago, it seemed like when the playoffs started, the rumor was that Quinn Ewers was going to come back to Texas. And there were even other rumors talking about schools were offering him $6 million to enter the transfer portal, is the number that I saw floating around. But then last night, there were insiders reporting that this was expected to be Quinn's last game. And that was before the game started. So now that we know the result of that game and looking at how Quinn Ewers performed, let's pull that up here real quick. 23 of 39, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. It's like our NFL teams, and I know they don't draft based off of one game, obviously, but has he really done enough this year to make it worth entering the NFL draft? I mean, if there really is, again, going back to Carson Beck, $4 million to transfer to Miami. I know somebody's going to pay that type of money for Quinn. Again, the $6 million was the rumor before the playoffs started. Maybe he can get close to that number still. If I was Quinn, I think I would think about hitting that portal.
That's exactly what I think he should do.
And I don't know if Texas is going to want him back.
No.
I think they're ready to give the reins to Arch Manning.
They want Arch.
I'm a little surprised that we didn't see Arch more last night, but I think that they are ready to give the program to him, their star in the waiting.
If I'm Quinn Ewers, I'm in the portal. I'm going to whatever school's offering $6-7 million or however much, and finishing out my eligibility and seeing if I can improve my draft positioning for the next season.
Again, yeah, if you look to next year's draft, who is supposed to be the best quarterback, right?
I've already seen articles touting that Archie Manning is going to be the number 1 overall pick.
And he could be. Who knows? It's crazy.
For the next year's draft.
Right. Yeah. For the 2026 draft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, he could be because, again, there's just not the elite guys in college football that we've seen traditionally. It's, again, every year somebody makes a surprise run out of nowhere. And undoubtedly that is going to happen. Like, again, it just always does. Somebody comes in and steps up, but it seems like the overall level, and maybe we've just been spoiled over the last several years of having a lot of good college quarterbacks. Maybe it is because of the eligibility and the age and whatnot, but just looking at the quarterbacks this year in the sport, it's not the same.
Looking on the other side, even Will Howard, there was some questions and some doubt coming into the season about Will Howard. And I think Will Howard has done a good job of answering the call. Obviously, the Ohio State Buckeyes are probably the best team in college football at the moment. They're probably my favorite to win it heading into that national championship game against Notre Dame. But Will Howard has done a good enough job to answer to his critics.
Yeah. And he's a player that throughout the regular season didn't really impress very much, but boy, in these playoffs.
He's turned it on.
Boy, in these playoffs.
He's turned it on.
Has he turned into something special? And not just him, but it seems like this whole team has really just elevated their play ever since that first round win.
I'm so curious. Had Ohio State not lost to Michigan, do they go on this run?
No.
Because I think Michigan sparked a completely different fire under that team.
And it's crazy how that can work, right? I mean, some players, some athletes, that sort of loss would just completely bury them and be like, okay, yeah, we suck. We're done. We're not even going to try. But then, you talk about the best teams in sports, like they overcome that sort of adversity. And like you say, Alex, it really lights a fire under these guys to do something special. And it is kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but it's like everybody's hopping on the Ohio State bandwagon because, they have played lights out throughout these playoffs. And it's hard to not watch this team and say, yeah, they're the favorites to win this thing.
And you know what, man? I think the same thing can be said about Notre Dame.
To an extent, yeah.
Had Notre Dame not lost to Northern Illinois, do they still go on the run that they have now to the national championship?
That's a little different, I feel like, because the loss was so long ago.
But it was so for lack of better words, it was pretty embarrassing.
It was embarrassing,
pretty embarrassing.
It definitely was. But, I mean, they were ranked before the loss, and then they ended up being ranked after the loss. So, I don't know. But, yeah, Notre Dame has played like the second best team in this playoff
You know
bracket,
what, man?
So.
Notre Dame is probably the luckiest team in college football right now.
You think so? Because of who they drew in the playoffs?
No, I'm saying because of the way the system's set up. It's meant for Notre Dame to win.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through a conference championship.
Right.
Because you're not in a conference. all this bonus money that the teams get who make it to the playoffs, you don't have to share with anybody.
No,
it's all,
they get
it's your money.
$20 million all to themselves.
That's insane.
That's a lot of money.
That's insane. This system is set up for, I think unintentionally, but it's set up for Notre Dame to be successful because they're independent.
So you're saying BYU should have stayed independent?
I don't know about that.
No, you're right, Alex. So in jest, I mean, yeah, $20 million not having to share with anybody.
That's
what a deal, right?
Crazy amount of money that you can do a lot with for in this day and age of the transfer portal and NIL, and you can invest it in any which way you want.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
I would not be surprised if Notre Dame continues to be as successful as we've seen them be this season with everything that's happening.
So looking ahead to the national championship game, this game will be played on January 20th, about a week and some days, a week and some change. Who do you got, Alex? Let's preview this game a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about it next week, obviously, more in depth. But do you think that Notre Dame can beat Ohio State, or are the Buckeyes just on too much of a hot streak to be taken down?
So, said it earlier, I do think that Notre Dame's defense is probably the best defense in college football right now. Ohio State has a really good defense. I think both defenses will step up to the plate, will rise to the occasion, and they'll have good games. The biggest question for me, and the biggest thing that I'm looking at, can Riley Leonard and that offense keep up with Will Howard and that offense?
Yeah.
And I don't think they will.
Well, I mean, Ohio State they have receivers galore, right? Like Jeremiah Smith had one of his quietest games of the season last night, 1 catch for 3 yards. But then you got somebody like Carnell Tate, comes out of nowhere, 7 catches for 87 yards. Travion Henderson, the running back, housing that screen call, obviously, for the big 75-yard touchdown. Emeka Egbuka, a player that was talked about a lot before the season, 5 catches for 51 yards, really impactful 51 yards. So they have ways to move the ball through the air, but on the ground, it's a different story. Only 81 yards on 24 carries total for the Buckeyes. So I think if Notre Dame can find a way to negate that passing attack in any which way, whether it is forcing turnovers or just getting to Will Howard and putting pressure on him, I do like Notre Dame's chances if they can stop. And it's a big ask because throughout this playoff, they have seemed dang near unstoppable. But if they can find a way to slow down that passing attack at all, I don't think Ohio State can get it done on the ground.
If they can slow down the passing attack, Notre Dame has more than plenty of opportunity. But again, I look at that offense for Notre Dame. Riley Leonard hasn't been specifically known for his passing ability. Still has 2,606 yards on the season, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But the thing that concerns me is you look at their top receiver at Notre Dame, and that's going to be Jaden Greathouse, who only has 36 receptions, 464 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the year. You compare that to Smith, who has 1,227 yards, 14 touchdowns on the year. And so I think if Notre Dame defense can step up, contain that Ohio State offense, and allow something to get going for that Notre Dame offense, I do think Notre Dame will have a chance. But I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think Ohio State's offense is too good, and I'm questioning if Riley Leonard can keep up.
But that's how it's almost like Utah, right? That's how Notre Dame wins games, with their defense and not asking the quarterback and the offense to put up a lot of points. 27 points is a lot for these guys. Traditionally they are a beat you with their defense type of team. So yeah, if it is a close game like that where both offenses are struggling to produce, I would take Notre Dame just because that's how they're used to winning these big games. But of course, if it gets into a shootout, yeah, I would take Will Howard and Ohio State over this Fighting Irish team any day.
Absolutely. I think right now my early pick is probably going to be Ohio State.
What is right now, Vegas has Ohio State as 9.5-point favorites. Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
That's quite a bit for a championship game. So yeah, Vegas is not liking Notre Dame's chances in this one.
Vegas, I think, just like most of the country and most of us, they're fully on this Ohio State Buckeyes hype train right now.
Yeah.
Because they, like you mentioned, they've been absolutely lights out since the playoffs started.
Yeah. I mean, looking at what they did throughout this run, smacking Tennessee around 42-17, and then completely stomping Oregon 41-21. Their 28-point performance last night was almost disappointing compared to everything else that they've done in the playoffs. Just looking at how much this team has changed since that Michigan loss, going back to your point earlier, it's pretty crazy how they can be ignited like that. And I mean, after that Michigan game, I came in here talking about Ryan Day should be fired, and I didn't think he was that great of a coach and didn't know what he was doing. And look at him now. I mean, obviously he's doing something right. He's just lucky they don't have to play Michigan in the championship because he'd lose.
I think almost everybody had questions whether Ryan Day was going to continue after that loss to Michigan, but if he goes out and obviously he's already in the national championship, if he goes and wins that national championship for Ohio State, I think a lot of the Ohio State fan base will forgive him, but Michigan will always hold over their heads that they beat the national champion.
That would be the funniest outcome, I think. National champions losing to their 7-win rival. It's time for a break. Coming up next on the other side, let's talk Jazz, Alex. They put together some big wins last weekend, and they've lost since then, but I want to talk about how impactful those wins may be. We'll get into that next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. Alex, let's talk some Jazz.
Let's talk some Utah Jazz.
Looking over their last several games, the Jazz got a couple of wins, a couple of big wins last weekend in particular, Saturday and Sunday. They beat Miami in Miami 136-100. Then they beat Orlando in Orlando 105-92. They have since lost 2 games. That Atlanta game where Trae Young hit the half-court shot at the buzzer. And then they lost at home versus Miami on Thursday night as well. But those couple of wins really scared some people, Alex. The Jazz now have 9 wins on the season, 9-27. Do you think they're winning too much?
Yes and no. Because, I mean, this is a conversation we had before in the past. At what point do the losses just become detrimental to the development of the young guys?
Right.
And so I do think picking up, a couple wins here and there isn't going to hurt anybody. It might hurt your draft lottery picks or your draft chances and stock or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it's more so helps the young guys.
Right, because if you look at those 2 wins, who led the team in points?
Bryce
Sensabaugh. Okay, you're not talking about them winning because Jordan Clarkson has a crazy game or John Collins has a crazy game, right? We spend so much time in the offseason talking about the youth movement and what do we have in these 6 players that were drafted over the last 2 years and who is worth keeping around and being a part of the franchise for the foreseeable future. What can we get out of these young guys? And you come in and you have Bryce Sensabaugh, 34 points against Miami, 27 points against Orlando, back-to-back huge games from the former Buckeye.
And then he gets the flu.
And then he conspicuously gets the flu. Oh, Bryce, you're looking a little green in the gills there, pal. Yeah, you sure? You don't look like you feel too good, Bryce.
You're going to have to sit out the next 4 games.
That's awesome, though, right? Because that is the
Yes.
fruit of the labor. That is what this is all about. And, I talk so much about being able, tangible things that you can watch over the season, tangible growth. Like Bryce Sensabaugh was not doing this last year, and he was not doing this earlier in the year. But to be able to just see it unfold before our eyes and say, yes, he is becoming a better basketball player throughout the course of this 82-game season. Like, that is the fun part about this. And I know that it's not fun to watch L after L after L, but seeing the growth from these young guys is fun. And whether, 2 games is not enough to say, yep, let's keep Bryce Sensabaugh around for 10 years and see where that goes. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but at the very least, he has shown that he has the potential to be either a trading chip or, part of the roster going forward.
Well, and he was a guy coming into this season that I had a lot of questions about.
Yeah,
I wasn't
for sure.
sure. I wasn't sure who or what Bryce Sensabaugh was going to be in the NBA. And so for him to kind of break through against Miami, score those 34 points, then have a stellar game in his hometown, and have those 27, and then kind of come back, and we start to see that growth, we start to see that development, we start to see again who this guy is going to be in the NBA. That is what, as a Jazz fan, should excite you.
Yeah.
That is what you are looking for as a Jazz fan, to see a guy like Bryce develop and continue to have those types of performances, because that answers a lot of questions for, again, what the future holds for Sensabaugh as he grows in the NBA. And unfortunate that, of course, he got sick, hasn't been able to play the last couple of games. Would have liked to see him, if he could consistently continue to put the performances that we saw on the road. But hope to see Sensabaugh back on the court soon enough.
The Jazz, 9-27 on the year, as I mentioned earlier. 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. They have the 5th worst record in the league. Charlotte is there at 8-27 with the 4th worst record. Brooklyn, they have 13 wins. They're the 6th worst record. So the Jazz have a bit of a cushion there. That's the other talking point when we're looking at this is, it's not like the Jazz are neck and neck right there for the 5th worst odds at the number 1 pick. They have a couple of games of cushion. So it's a fine line between, being happy that they get wins, and then obviously you want them to have odds to get Cooper Flagg, who we're watching dominate right now, duke up 34-19 over Notre Dame. So the trade deadline is coming up, right? And you look at the last 2 Jazz seasons, and both times they've made trades at the deadline and lost a lot of games after making those trades. So my question to you, Alex, do you think that they are a little too good right now? Do you think that they should make some trades and deal some players away and increase their odds at losing games?
I think they are. I think the Utah Jazz are fine where they are right now. And that might be,
you think so?
That might be a crazy statement, but I think Colin Sexton, John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, I think they're players you can build around. I've liked what I've seen from Sexton this year. I've liked what I've seen from John Collins this year. I've liked, obviously, Lauri's Lauri. He's the superstar. Can't get rid of him. I don't necessarily think the Jazz need to trade anything away this season. I think they've lost plenty of games already as it is. And you can continue to develop your youth while continuing to allow Colin Sexton to grow, while continuing to allow Lauri to grow, and be in a position well enough where you can get a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft.
Interesting. So looking at some of the vets that could be possible trade candidates, I think Colin Sexton is the biggest and the best. And it's hard because it's not like he's an old vet, right? He's
on the younger side.
I think he's 20. He's 26.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not.
You got plenty of gas in the tank at 26.
Plenty of gas in the tank, but then it becomes like, can the Jazz really become good enough to justify keeping him? In the next, let's say, year or two.
Yeah, but I mean the same thing can be asked about Lauri, who's 27.
Right. Who they just signed to the monster deal and made it so they can't trade him right now at the trade deadline. Because Colin Sexton has become a tremendous player for the Jazz, and not only is he a good player, but he's a good role model. It's not like he's one of these
100%
doofuses that comes in and wants to do whatever he wants and thinks it's the Colin
100%.
Sexton show. Like, he comes in, he is extremely coachable. He does everything that Coach Hardy asks him to do. He does not complain. He works hard every single possession, every single night, all 82 games of the year. He is the perfect role model for any of these young players. Not saying that these young players are in dire need of a role model, but, they're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids coming into the professional basketball world. So, yeah, they need somebody to look up to and see how to do it right. And that is what Colin Sexton has been,
100%.
especially this season. And going back to last year as well, I really am a big fan of what he's done here in Utah. So on the court, he's good. He's fun to have. But it's like I want him here in Utah just as much for his off the court stuff.
He seems like when we see the videos that get posted on social media by the Utah Jazz, all the behind the scenes stuff, and he seems like a genuinely great guy. And if I'm in a position where, if I'm the Utah Jazz, I'm the Hornets, I'm the Pelicans, the Wizards, whoever, is all these teams that are in a position to be near the top of the lottery, then I don't think there's a person I would rather want on my team than Colin Sexton to be able to help a guy like Keontae George grow and learn in the NBA.
Yeah. But then it's hard because obviously, he does have a lot of value. So I think as the trade deadline creeps up, you're going to have some teams calling, right? And I don't know off the top of my head what teams he'd be a great fit with, but it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers want to kick the tires. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Suns want to make something happen. So that's interesting there. Another interesting name, too, is like you look at Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler, some of these players with big contracts that need to get traded. If a team wants to make a move for them, they might need some help facilitating a trade. That's where the Jazz can come in and help match salaries and things like that. So I'd keep an eye on somebody like Jordan Clarkson, maybe, like just because of his contract number, or John Collins as well, because they aren't a part of this quote-unquote youth movement. They have decently large contracts that can, again, help match those salaries in the trades. So it does make you wonder, like, as the trade deadline creeps up, are the Jazz going to be players?
I do believe, just because I don't think they'll get to the trade deadline, and not make a move. So I do think that the Jazz will, in some way, shape, or form, be involved with one of these 3-4 team trades to help facilitate something for somebody else.
Yeah,
because the Jazz have the assets, the Jazz have the space to make that happen for somebody else. I do believe, as we get closer to the trade deadline, the Jazz will potentially be a part of something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's almost inevitable because again
it's inevitable.
They've done it every year.
Yeah.
And just looking at the vets this year, John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, Sviva Mihailuk is another name that you can throw in here. I think he was kind of a surprise signing in the offseason, and he's been a little bit better than at least I thought he would be, and I'm sure to a lot of other Jazz fans as well. But he has championship experience. He was in Boston last year when they won. So, again, just role players that some other teams could be looking for some depth or matching salaries. I know Svi in particular doesn't have a huge contract, but you look at just players needing depth at the trade deadline, and what Svi does, I think it could be useful to some teams, maybe even like the Denver Nuggets who don't have a lot of shooting. Svi could go in and help them there. So the Jazz have assets, some of their vets teams could be interested in. So if I had to pick one player that I would say the Jazz are probably going to move, I don't know if I could pick one in particular, but I think I might have just talked myself into Svi. I don't know. I really like what he does.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, I think he's come in and impressed probably more than we expected. And so he's definitely a guy whose name can be thrown in there. And
I think of Simone Fontecchio last year, right? Like he was kind of a surprise when the Jazz dealt him away.
That is a perfect comparison, I think,
but
in this situation.
He was kind of an under-the-radar guy, and the Pistons decided to kick the tires on him. Now, why the Pistons, I'm not sure. But again, under-the-radar guy, not a very big name, but he does a lot of things right, and he plays winning basketball. So yeah, if teams are looking for a depth piece, I guess that's who I would tab as maybe the most likely to be traded. But you know who's not going to be traded is Walker Kessler.
Yes,
I've seen a lot of reports saying that the Jazz are not interested in trading him anymore.
It's crazy that at the beginning of the season or in the early parts of the off season, there was a lot of talk about Kessler leaving.
Yeah. The Jazz wanted 2 first-round picks for him last year,
Yeah.
and it sounded like they almost got it done. But I think he has come in and really worked his butt off to break that slump that he was in last year, and he's really improved. I mean, he had a 2010 game the other day, or was it 20 and 15? Anyways, I mean, he's played tremendous.
Kessler has been phenomenal.
And he's definitely talked the Jazz into keeping him around.
I think the two biggest young guys for me that have taken a really good step forward this season, I think it's Kessler and Keontae George.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see some of these younger guys continue to make those step forwards. We talk about Bryce Sensabaugh. I've liked the early showings of Isaiah Collier. I've liked the early showings of Cody Williams. And so I feel like the Jazz are continuing to head in the right direction as far as developing all this young talent.
I've been this whole entire segment trying to find, because Bryce Sensabaugh has not played since that Orlando game, I don't think. Maybe he played against Miami and I missed it. But anyways, Bryce Sensabaugh is questionable today for the Phoenix Suns game. Jazz have an early afternoon game today, by the way, playing the Suns at 3. But Bryce Sensabaugh is questionable with an illness. So I don't think we've seen Bryce since those big games. I wonder, how long this illness will last.
Capture the flag, man.
Yeah.
Let's get that top 5 pick, huh?
And if he really is sick, get well soon, Bryce.
Yes.
Not to make
absolutely.
a joke out of that, but also it's a little conspicuous.
Dude, I know we got to go to break here, but I got to ask, man. What is going on in Phoenix?
Oh, they're a mess. And I could have told you this when they started all of this. I don't know why you would trade every depth player that you have for Bradley Beal.
It is insane.
I get wanting Kevin Durant and Devin Booker together. Like, who wouldn't want that? But Bradley Beal never made sense. And now they have forced him to the bench. He has a no-trade clause. There are 2 players in the NBA with a no-trade clause, Bradley Beal and LeBron James. So Phoenix literally cannot trade him unless he gives the okay. They moved him to the bench, presumably to make him angry, to incentivize him to waive that no trade clause. But nobody wants to trade for him because he still has, I think, 2 or 3 years left on his contract.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is one of the biggest contracts in the NBA.
Yes.
Why would anybody want to trade for that?
Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal are all in the top 10 players as far as
Highest paid.
Highest paid,
Yeah.
yes. And they're not good.
No, they're not good. They could be good if they had depth, but they traded
No, they
all of their
don't.
depth pieces to get Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. So, and mind you, Kevin Durant is hurt half the time now
Yes.
because he's so old. When he is available, he's a tremendous player. He's still great, but
I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz won this one tonight.
yeah, let's see, huh? I guess
wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz won.
we'll see.
You get to 10 and you change again your lottery positioning.
Ben Anderson, our Jazz insider, had a pretty interesting tweet. I think it was yesterday, just comparing the Jazz and the Phoenix Suns. And it's been interesting. They're basically the same team this year. And one team is obviously trying to win the title, and the other team is in a quote-unquote youth movement. So let's see. This is Ben's tweet. Since November 9th, the Suns are 9-18, while the Jazz are 8-20. The Suns rank 23rd in net rating, while the Jazz are 24th. Throughout the Jazz's 1-7 start and the Suns' 8-1 start, these teams are basically identical.
Wow.
So yeah,
That
Ben.
bad, huh?
Yeah, Ben has been poking some fun at the Phoenix
jeez.
Suns. Go follow Ben if you don't at Ben's Hoops on Twitter. He is our Jazz insider for KSLSports.com. He does a tremendous job. And again, the Jazz play the Suns today at 3. Pregame will start at 2 here on The Zone. We got to take a break, Alex. Coming up next on the other side, we'll get into some technical fouls. Zion Williamson at it again. Stay with us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet. That's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
You'll get hit with a bat.
'cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for one of our favorite segments every single week. Technical Fouls, where we get to talk about some of the funnier sports stories. Alex, I'll start us off today. I want to talk about the number one overall pick in the NFL. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it seems like nobody wants the number one pick this year.
Dive into that. What do you mean by that?
So you look at so right now, the regular season's over and the Tennessee Titans have the number one pick, right?
Right.
The Raiders were in the driver's seat.
Oh.
And then they won a game
Okay.
that they shouldn't have won.
Yes.
They lost the number one pick. The Giants were in the driver's seat after that, and they ended up winning a game. And so they lost the number one pick. Then the New England Patriots had the number one pick last week. They sat Drake May, put in Joe Milton III, who has not played all year, and he led the Patriots to a win over the Buffalo Bills. They lost the number one pick. So you're looking at three teams who basically controlled their own destiny. Three bad teams that all they had to do was not win any more football games, and they'd end up with the number one pick. And they ended up winning.
Yes.
Whether or not you want to take a player with that pick brings so much value, because if you're not going to take a player, somebody will, and they'll pay a pretty penny to move up. And especially, these teams are bad football teams. They have a lot of holes, right? So, say you don't love any of the players at the top of the draft, trade it away and move down. Like, what? I don't get why any of these teams would win games. I do think, looking at the Patriots win in particular, I think that's hilarious because the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo literally right after the game. I got a lot of love for coaches who win games on their way out when they shouldn't win games. The Texans did this a couple of years ago. I believe was it Lovie Smith?
I think so, yes.
He knew he was going to be fired.
Yes.
Going into their final game. They had the same situation. They had the number one pick. All they had to do was lose. But Lovie Smith said, nope, screw you guys. I'm going out and winning this game. And they dropped to pick number 2. Now it worked out because they got C.J. Stroud. But I do think it's hilarious when coaches know that they're a dead man walking and they win on the way out. I'm a sucker for that. Big fan.
I will say on a little bit more of a serious note on this conversation, did you see Joe Milton respond to it? And I loved his answer.
Yes.
He basically was on Instagram Live and he talked about how as a backup, this was his chance to showcase himself, and so he wasn't going to take the loss.
Right. Well, and it's cliche. You hear it a lot because he's not just going out there and trying to prove himself to the Patriots. He's going out and putting film out for all 32 teams in the NFL.
Exactly.
Saying, I have a lot of talent. I have one of the strongest arms in the league. They charted he had the second hardest throw of the NFL season, or maybe it was NFL history. Anyways, he clocked a throw at like 62 miles an hour behind Jordan Love, by the way. Jordan Love had the hardest throw of the NFL season. But, Joe Milton, I don't remember where he was drafted, but he was a late-round pick. He looked good in the preseason, but who doesn't look good in the preseason? And I know the Bills were resting their starters. But to not play all year and then come in, and he really did look fabulous.
Yeah, and he was also number 3 because Jacoby Brissett was number 1 heading into the season.
Yeah, so he technically wasn't the backup. He was the number 3 quarterback for the Patriots.
Number 3.
Yeah, you're right. So, to put this win on Joe Milton, I don't think that's right because, you're not going to go out and tell the players to play bad.
Absolutely.
You're not going to go tell the players to lose. But, yeah, I do think it was funny how there were 3 or 4 teams that had that number 1 overall pick locked up, And all they had to do was keep losing.
I think
And they
it's-
said, nope, we're winning. It's Drew Lock time, baby.
I think it's specifically funny for the Giants and for the Raiders, who basically were in control of the number 1 pick for a large majority of the season.
Yes.
And then over the course of the last 2 weeks of the season, they lost it because they decided they wanted to
Yeah,
win
now
games.
Tennessee is like, oh, we got the number 1 pick? All right. That's awesome.
And I'm curious to see who they'll take, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day.
Zion Williamson, late to the team plane and suspended because he was late to the team play. Christian, what the heck's going on with Zion
What
Williamson?
an idiot, dude. This guy was hurt all year with the bum hamstring because I'll stop myself.
Get that dump button ready.
No, listen. Obviously, his weight has been an issue for his entire career in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it does him any favors when it comes to his hamstrings. The impressive thing is, or the frustrating thing is, I guess, he comes in, his first game healthy in who knows how long. Did you see that dunk?
Yes.
His
Yes. It was crazy.
360 windmill dunk, reminding us what he can do when he's healthy. Then he thinks he's all that and is late to the freaking team plane like he's James Harden. And then this report comes out that apparently he's late to meetings all the time.
And practices.
The Pelicans suspended him for last night's game against the 76ers, which New Orleans won, by the way, 123-115. But it's just very frustrating to see one of the most obviously naturally talented athletes of our generation to just throw it away and not care.
Can
I
you
hate it.
imagine how good he could be if he cared?
If he took himself seriously? Yeah. I literally couldn't even imagine what that
Wild.
would be like.
And now the Pelicans I feel like the Pelicans just have no idea what to do with him anymore.
No.
He's hurt all the time, and when he's not hurt, he does stuff like this.
They put all their chips into the Zion basket, and
it completely backfired.
he's been a name talked about as far as trades go with the deadline coming up. So we'll see what they end up doing. The Pelicans are 8-31, by the way. The sixth. Not the sixth. Where are they? The second worst record in the NBA. Sorry.
Yeah, they're not doing so hot this
I
year.
was playing with Tankathon, so my numbers were all messed up.
Yeah, they're not doing so hot this year, which is kind of crazy considering the fact that, I mean, they were a decent team. What,
They
two
could be a
years?
playoff team
2
if
years
Zion
ago?
took this stuff seriously. Yeah.
It's wild to see how far the Pelicans have fallen. And I feel bad for Brandon Ingram.
Yeah.
I really do.
I do, because he was one of those players that was pushed out of Los Angeles. LeBron didn't want him, and went to New Orleans, and he was supposed to be part of, this team that has all this potential, and they just cannot get it together because their main guy doesn't care. So it was very frustrating, and I'd be frustrated if I was a Pelicans fan, but I'm not, so we can sit here and laugh at it. We'll see. That's definitely a situation to monitor, though, is Zion Williamson and the Pelicans. I think with all of this stuff going on, I'd be surprised if they don't trade him. Maybe not at the deadline, but in the summer at least, in the offseason.
But who's going to want him?
Yeah, I would.
You know?
Somebody could take a shot. I don't know. He's got
Hey,
talent.
Wizards.
Yeah, he's got talent.
We got something for you.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. Technical foul on Zion Williamson. He will be back, though. It was only a 1-game suspension, so let's see when their next game is. Again, they beat the 76ers last night. They play the Celtics tomorrow, and Zion will be back for that game unless he hurts his hamstring again. We'll see.
He's going to hurt it walking up the stairs.
Yeah, I saw a picture. I don't know if it was true or not. You never know what's true on social media these days, but apparently he was like it was a selfie with the Wendy's worker. Like he was at the Wendy's drive-in before the team played, and that's why he was late. It's probably fake. It's probably an old picture. It's probably not true, but that would be funny.
That would be
right?
hilarious. He stopped to get what is it, a Dave single?
Yeah.
He stopped to get a Dave
A biggie
single.
bag. All right, we got to take another break. Coming up next, Alex, let's talk NFL playoffs. Big weekend. Can't wait to get into it. That's coming up next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. A couple of NFL junkies. Let's get into it, man. I'm
Let's do
excited. I'm so excited for the playoffs.
It's bittersweet, man.
It is, because it's signaling that the season's coming to an end, but this is what we do it for, right?
This is what we do it for. This is why you play the game.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we got a full slate this weekend. First round of the NFL playoffs, starting with the Chargers at the Texans today at 2:30. Alex, who do you got in this one?
Oh, man, give me the Chargers. I just, look, for me, the Texans have been limping into the playoffs. I think
they're only, sorry to cut you off, they're only here because the rest of their division is so bad.
Yes. The C.J. Stroud, while I thought he started off the season pretty decently, he's been in a sophomore slump. I think I can confidently say that now. This Texans team, bringing in Joe Mixon, bringing in Stephon Diggs, I think there was a lot of hype and surrounding the Texans team, and I wanted them to be good. Don't get me wrong, I did want this team to succeed, but I think that they've limped into the playoffs. And I'm not going to pick John Harbaugh, or I'm not going to pick against John Harbaugh, is what I should say.
And that's the interesting thing, because the Chargers obviously might be cursed. They have a tradition, a history, but I think tradition is the better word, because they seem to enjoy doing it, of shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen a Chargers team be good in the playoffs. And that's going all the way back to Phillip Rivers.
But that might be different now.
It might be different now. And that's the thing, is Jim Harbaugh is so good in the playoffs.
There you go.
He's so good in the playoffs. I mean, that's what he does, is win football games. And he has seemingly come in and changed the culture in LA. And I'm with you, Alex. I think Justin Herbert is going to win his first playoff game this year.
Yeah.
Going back to the last time he was in the playoffs when they were up, what was it, 27-0 over the Jaguars, or maybe it was 20-0.
Oh, yeah.
And they blew that away.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh would never let that
happened.
happen.
Yeah, I forgot that happened. No, and then if you look at the Chargers, I think that they have been the opposite of Texas, in which they are coming into the playoffs really hot.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston has really turned things on, and that's a guy who has had his struggles in his first 2 years in the NFL. So he's on a hot streak coming in, and then you got Ladd McConkey coming in, and he's had a phenomenal rookie season. J.K. Dobbins missed a few games, but he's back now, their lead running back. And then again, you've got Justin Herbert throwing the pigskin around. I think one of the key matchups in this game, Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, I think they are second in the NFL in sacks coming into this one, but the Chargers have two really good tackles in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Of course, it was pretty controversial that the Chargers took Joe Alt with the 5th pick instead of going with Malik Neighbors or somebody like that. But it's clearly worked out, going Alt and then Ladd McConkey. So if the Chargers tackles can negate that Texans pass rush, I like their chances, man. I think Justin Herbert is one of the most gifted quarterbacks in the NFL, and that hasn't necessarily translated to wins and playoff success, so there's a little bit of a debate there, talking about where he ranks among the quarterbacks in the league, but he is one of those, it's like Josh Allen or Lamar or whatever, the right. Really good ones, fun to put on the TV and just say, man, this dude is good at football.
Absolutely. He's shown glimpses of how great of a quarterback he can be, and now I think with the pieces around him and obviously under Harbaugh's offense, we're finally starting to really see Herbert flourish. Again, give me the Chargers in this one.
Steelers-Ravens, 6 p.m. AFC North matchup. I've talked a few times on this show about how much fun it is to watch AFC North football because you never know who's going to win. Is it different going in the playoffs?
Yes. I have Baltimore written all over this one.
Oh, dude, you talk about, hot streaks and cold streaks. Russell Wilson is on one of the coldest streaks over the last 5 weeks.
Oh, yes. He's been so bad over the course of the last couple of weeks that Mike Tomlin's in his pre-pressers, right, leading up to the game, in his press conferences leading up to the game, saying that they might go to Justin Fields in the playoffs.
They might have to.
You're going to make a quarterback switch going into the playoffs? What are we doing?
Yeah, they never... Justin Fields played really well to start the year for Pittsburgh. I don't understand why they ever would have went away from that. And I know, obviously, Russ won some games and put them in this position to be in the playoffs. But I don't think Russell Wilson ever did anything that Justin Fields couldn't do. So it will be interesting to see this. And then, of course, on the other side in Baltimore, one of the best teams in the NFL. They've had some of the most dominant performances of the season. Lamar Jackson just named first-team All-Pro. Derrick Henry, second-team All-Pro. Two of the best players in the NFL at their respective positions. So
I can tell you exactly how this game's going to go.
Okay.
Russell Wilson's going to start. Baltimore's going to take a big lead. Fields at some point will come into the game. He'll spark a fire, start leading them back. But by then, it'll be too little too late.
He'll get blamed for the loss, and Pittsburgh will lose Justin Fields in free agency.
Probably.
That's exactly how it's going to go.
That's probably what's going to happen. Give me the Baltimore, man. No doubt.
All right. 11 a.m. tomorrow, we got the Broncos at the Bills. The Broncos, for the first time in 8 years, are in the playoffs. Now, Alex, I am a Broncos fan.
Yes.
I was thinking about this the other day.
Yes.
The last time the Broncos were in the playoffs, I was a sophomore in high school. I didn't even have my driver's license yet. I was not 16 years old yet. The last time Denver was in the playoffs. So this is a big deal for me. But I'd be lying to myself if I came in and said that I think the Broncos were going to win. A couple things, okay? First off, rookie quarterbacks do not win road playoff games.
Sure.
That historically, they don't. The other reason, and I was thinking about this yesterday in particular, if you look at the Broncos' schedule, obviously their last win of the season was really fun, 38-0 over the Chiefs, and that punched their ticket to the playoffs. But the thing is, their 2 games before that were against the Chargers and the Bengals, 2 borderline playoff teams. Obviously, the Chargers made it, the Bengals didn't. If the Broncos would have won either of those, they could have won either of those 2 games and punched their ticket, 2 or 3 weeks early.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't quite must-win games, but they were very big games for
Right.
the Denver Broncos. They lost both of those.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great way to look at it.
So I don't think Denver is quite good enough to win a playoff game, especially not on the road in Buffalo against Josh Allen. I do like the way the teams match up. I think it could be a sneaky fun game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I don't think the Broncos are ready. But, man, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, I think, look, and plus you're going to Buffalo, man. I think Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills get it done against Denver.
Yeah.
But I think the Broncos defense does a good job of keeping them in the game.
Yeah.
I've been incredibly impressed with the Broncos defense, but I think the inexperience on the offensive side of the ball, right? You mentioned the rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. Sorry, Bo. I think you've been phenomenal this year, but I just don't think you're there yet.
No. And maybe Josh Allen is a little PO'd that Lamar Jackson was named first-team All-Pro instead of him. We'll see how the MVP voting comes down in a couple weeks. Another underrated storyline in this one, Von Miller, of course, former Bronco, did a lot of great things. Super Bowl MVP for them. He's on the Bills. He's not near the player that he used to be when he was in Denver, but it's still fun to see him because he is a franchise great. So it will be interesting to see how he comes out and performs against his old team. He's done some media appearances throughout the week and talked about how much love he has for Denver. So, I'm rooting for him. I love Von Miller, one of my favorite players ever. We'll see how this goes. Again, I'm just happy to be here. Next up, tomorrow afternoon, 2:30, Packers at the Eagles. Sorry. Before we continue, I have one more thing to say, not about the Broncos. I talked about rookie quarterbacks don't win on the road historically. Another historic thing that happens every year, especially since they've started the Super Wild Card Weekend, there is always an upset. Now, right now, we have not picked an upset. But there always is one.
I'm about to pick an upset.
Are you? Okay. You think the Packers are going to beat the Eagles?
Dude, give me the Packers.
Okay.
What's the hardest thing to do in football? Beating the same team twice.
Yes.
And
especially good teams.
Especially good teams. And look, I love Philadelphia. I love Saquon. I think the Eagles if they can get past Green Bay, I think the Eagles will make it to the NFC Championship game. However, you go back to that game in Brazil.
First week of the NFL season.
Jordan Love didn't play that second half.
He was hurt.
And I think if Jordan Love would have finished that game, I think Packers take it in Brazil.
Yeah. So, okay, I like that point because that's a point that I go to a lot as well.
But the biggest question mark for me is going to be what's Jordan Love's health looking like? Because he did leave that Bears game injured.
Elbow, right?
With an elbow.
Okay. Hopefully it was precautionary. Hopefully it was, let's wrap this guy in bubble wrap, nobody breathe on him type thing. So, yeah, I'm with you there, though, because that's, again, you just look at historic things, it is very hard to beat a good team twice. It just doesn't happen. So, if the Eagles do beat the Packers, all credit to them. Jalen Hurts missed the last 2 games with a concussion. By the way, he is healthy. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they seem to be healthy. Both teams should have some firepower coming in. The Packers lost Christian Watson. He tore his ACL, so we'll see how that passing attack looks, but their receiving core is pretty deep. So I'd imagine that they're still able to get things done. But this could be one of the best games of the playoffs, I think, because that Brazil game was really fun.
Absolutely. And then last year, Green Bay was the 7th seed, and they were 2 missed field goals away from making it to a Super Bowl, man.
There you go.
They weren't that far off knocking off the San Francisco 49ers. The Packers show up in the playoffs. I'm picking Green Bay to upset Philadelphia, but if Philadelphia makes it, I think the Eagles make it to the NFC Championship.
Go Pack, go. I'm with you.
Why not? Why not?
Tomorrow night, Commanders at the Buccaneers. This is going to be a fun game, too. Again, historically, rookie quarterbacks have trouble winning on the road. Do you think that the Commanders can get it done in Tampa Bay, or do you think Tampa Baker is going to lead his team to victory here, Alex?
The way I see this one playing out, it's going to be an absolute shootout.
That would be so much fun, wouldn't it?
I think it's going to be an absolute shootout. These are 2 offenses who are just going to go at each other, and it's going to be fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
You got Baker and Jaden Daniels. They're going to be slinging it all night. Daniels is probably going to rush for 150 yards because that's just what he does. And it's going to be a shootout. It's going to come down probably to the final possession. Who has the ball last? But I'm taking Washington on the road.
Well, the fun thing about this game is you also get a pay-per-view fight night matchup. The Commanders at the trade deadline traded for Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans
Yes.
Saints. In case you don't know, that is Mike Evans' sworn nemesis, his
Yes.
arch rival. He is the Joker to Mike Evans' Batman. It is on site when these 2 players meet each other.
And it's already been said that Lattimore will play.
He will play.
He will play.
Has he played at all since he was traded
He's
there?
been dealing with a hamstring.
Right.
Yeah, he's been playing with the hamstring.
So, exactly. That's what you do. If you can barely walk, you go out there. Maybe he's got some brass knuckles underneath his gloves. Just take Mike Evans out. That's what I do. I would think, one of the Utah Hockey Club preseason games, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like as soon as the whistle blew, Spicy Tuna threw his gloves off, and they just started fighting. That's what Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore are going to do tomorrow night. I love watching them fight.
I think it's a phenomenal matchup.
They've had some really funny fights.
Yeah.
But then you're right, the on-the-field product, obviously an all-pro or a former Pro Bowl receiver going against a really good corner, always fun to watch. So.
Absolutely. That matchup I'm very excited for. And, right, it's Baker's favorite target. If Lattimore can have an out-of-his-mind game and shut down Evans, I think that gives the Commanders an edge.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think both offenses are just going to go at each other. And the final team who has the ball is going to win this football game. And I'm feeling it's going to be the Commanders.
I'm going to go Tampa Bay. I like Tampa Bay's running game. I like Bucky Irving. So I'll go with the Bucs there.
All right.
We'll see who's right. And then the final game of this first round, Alex, the Vikings at the Rams. This game, by the way, was moved from Los Angeles to Phoenix because of all the fires. Thoughts and prayers to everybody in LA dealing with that. Such a horrific situation. And, we've seen some things with the Rams moving LA players and their families to Arizona during this time. So that is kind of an interesting wrinkle. I wonder if it's going to affect the on-the-field product at all. We'll see. But Vikings at Rams, Alex, of course, you're a Rams guy. I think we know who you got there. But give us some breakdown, at least.
Look, I think Minnesota, I think Minnesota were exposed a little bit against the Lions, man.
Oh,
I thought the Lions did a really good job of their coverage down the field to deny Darnold's options to get the ball out.
yeah.
In which case, turned to the D line for the Lions, getting breaking the pocket, collapsing that pocket real quick for Darnold, and not allowing him any time to get the ball out. The Rams do a great job on the defensive line doing just that.
The Rams have a better defensive front than the Lions do.
I would probably say so.
Yeah.
I would probably say so. Might be a little biased, but if the Rams can do the same thing that the Lions did in getting pressure to Darnold, collapsing that pocket, forcing him into making quick decisions, that's how you beat the Vikings.
Sam Darnold was charted with 8 overthrows in that Lions game, the second most of his career. The most was the infamous game when he was with the Jets and he said, "I'm seeing ghosts out there." But he was seeing ghosts in Detroit.
He was.
So we'll see if I was going to make a Ghostbusters joke, but it wouldn't work. We'll see if Sam Darnold can clean that up because he did. I mean, if their receivers were 7 feet tall, he would have had the game of his life. But he was overthrowing everybody. Hawk,
Yes.
Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison.
Yes.
Nobody could reel it in. And then there were some plays where it looked like he may have, I don't know their offense, but it looked like he may have made the wrong read. There were players open that he was missing in the end zone. So, yeah, I think this game all depends on what version of Sam Darnold we're going to see.
If you can rattle Darnold, and again, just like the Lions did, and you don't allow Darnold to get the ball to a Justin Jefferson to make plays, I think the Rams have a good shot. But what's the hardest thing to do in football, Christian?
Beat a good team twice.
Beat a good team twice. And the Rams beat the Vikings in the regular season.
Good point. I think if I'm coming down to picking who I think is going to win this game, it's such an interesting coaching matchup, too, because Kevin O'Connell was with the Rams.
Part of the coaching tree, yeah.
He learned under Sean McVay.
Yep.
So maybe that's either going to help him or hurt him, right? Either Sean McVay is going to say, hey, I know what you're going to do to come try and beat me. Bill Belichick never lost to any of his former assistants. Or you're going to see Kevin O'Connell come in and say, hey, I know exactly what you're going to do. I know how to beat you. So we'll see. I think there's a lot of fun storylines to this Monday night game.
Who's your pick?
I haven't picked yet.
Okay. All right.
I was about to make a pick, and then I questioned myself.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I think I'm going to go Vikings.
Okay.
I think I am. I think that Kevin O'Connell is going to have Sam Darnold ready. And obviously Sam Darnold, I tweeted this out last week during the Lions game. He lost himself a bunch of money, I think. And if he loses this game, he's going to lose himself even more money. So I think Sam Darnold himself, for personal reasons, has a lot riding on the line here. If he wants to secure a big bag in the offseason, I think this game is probably the most important game of his career.
Give me the Rams, man. I'm not going against the Rams at this moment.
I don't fault you. I get you. I think it's going to be a fun game, fun weekend overall. I think all of these games are going to be tremendous. I love NFL playoffs, so we'll see how it goes.
Best time of the year, man.
Best
Playoff
time of the
baby.
year. Again, they start today, 2:30 kickoff with the Chargers and Texans. So we'll see how that goes. We got to take a break. Coming up next, we will get into 5 minutes of the Utah Hockey Club dealing with a major injury. That always sucks. We'll get into that next. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza and Alex Napoles by my side. Alex, it's time for 5 minutes of kind of rapid fire. Talk about a lot of things. Let's start off with this. You're a big RSL guy. You do a lot of great work on the RSL Show podcast for KSLSports.com. RSL blowing things up. Top to bottom, changes all around. They are trading Chicho Arango to the San Jose Earthquakes. And then they also made some other changes. It sounds like they're going to be possibly losing Gavin Beavers and Anderson Julio.
Yes, Anderson Julio is official. That's a move that's already been made as he makes his way over to FC Dallas. Gavin Beavers potentially heading over to Europe. That deal currently being finalized, heading over to Brøndby. And the big one, Chicho Arango to San Jose Earthquakes. A shock.
His time in Salt Lake City was short and kind of sweet.
Kind of sweet up until the second half of the season.
Took him a little while to get going. And then he got really hot.
Yes.
And then, boy, did he cool off.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Christian Arango heading over to the San Jose Earthquakes. It feels very Rudy Gobert-esque
Yeah.
and Donovan Mitchell-esque.
It's a good way to compare it for fans that don't really follow RSL that closely. This is the equivalent of the Jazz blowing up their roster.
Absolutely. This was a team that last season started off really, really hot. They were the number one team in the Western Conference for quite a large majority of that first half of the season, fizzled out, and most largely in part after a mysterious 4-game suspension to Chicho Arango in June, having to miss in July and having to miss that All-Star game as well.
Yeah.
They still not a lot of information as to why that suspension came, but Chicho Arango is definitely not the same player after that suspension. And now, again, like a Donovan Mitchell, like a Rudy Gobert trade, they've kind of blown up the attack for Real Salt Lake. You lost Chicho Arango, who had 17 goals. Anderson Julio is no longer a part of this team. Matt Crooks was transferred back to England earlier this week as well.
They traded away Andres Gomez midway through the year. Another
You
one of
lost
their top
Andres
goal
Gomez,
scorers.
absolutely. All the top goal scorers for Real Salt Lake beside Diego Luna are no longer a part of this roster. They've completely blown up the attack, which is mind-boggling considering that they have Champions Cup coming up here in less than 2 months.
Wow. Losing is hard to watch. That is probably one of the most frustrating things as a fan. But what's even more frustrating is looking back at seasons like this and, the what could have been
Absolutely.
seasons. Because, yes, RSL had so much momentum. I mean, I had my December schedule cleared. I thought we were going to have a parade here in Salt Lake, a championship parade. But all jokes aside, that is the reality. We are going to look back on the season and always think of what could have been. The second half collapse that RSL had this season was just mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And
Never seen anything like it in sports.
No, and I mean, this team wasn't far off from being a successful MLS Cup contender, but now you've just completely blown up the entire roster.
Yeah.
And so it seems like this team is heading into a rebuild, and I'm curious to see the direction that Real Salt Lake heads in now with an open spot that needs to be filled in the absence of Chicho Arango.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Let's switch gears. Let's talk Utah Hockey Club. They got back in the win column last night. It was good to see. They beat the San Jose Sharks 2-1. Barrett Hayton putting the go-ahead goal with just under 2 minutes left. And this is kind of a fun rivalry emerging for the Utah Hockey Club against the San Jose Sharks, going back to that infamous blown 3-1 lead that Utah Hockey Club ended up losing that game early on in the year. But they've played 3 times now. Utah Hockey Club has won 2 of those games. They've won the last 2 matchups for what it's worth. But they mentioned it a few times on the broadcast, this is becoming kind of a rivalry for the Utah Hockey Club. And I think that's really fun, seeing the rivalries emerge for this new franchise. Of course, this team was around. They were the Arizona Coyotes last year, and who knows what they were up to as far as rivalries. I don't know if anybody really took them seriously, but I mean, coming up here to Salt Lake City and seeing this tradition emerge as far as who are you going to start rivalries with? Who are you going to have bad blood with? Who are you going to know is, it's must-see TV every time these guys play? And it looks like that might be the San Jose Sharks.
And I feel like it stems from that first game
Yeah.
against the San Jose Sharks, where you're up 4-1, and then within 3 minutes you allow them to come back,
Yep.
and then you
And then
lose
you
it in
lose in
you lose in overtime.
Oh, I'm still so upset about it.
I think a lot of fans are.
Yeah,
And
sensitive.
it's still a sensitive topic, so it's nice to go and get that 2-1 win against San Jose last night. And I want to go back to Wednesday night, where you welcome in the defending Stanley Cup champions in the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think they played that bad of a game.
No, they didn't. And so the 4-1 final is a little misleading because Florida scored 2 empty net goals in the final moments of the game there. So, I mean, you're looking at what's essentially a 2-1 game, right? And, this is what we've seen with Utah when it comes to teams like Dallas. They have been hanging with the Dallas Stars all year. And then the reigning Stanley Cup champions come in and Utah doesn't look bad against them. Now, they got pushed around. They got kind of bullied a little bit because Florida is a very physical team. But, I mean, it's very encouraging to see them stick around with the top dogs in the NHL. And that's something that we've kind of seen all year, right? So I think that's fun. Logan Cooley almost had one of the coolest goals I've ever seen. I don't know how often this happens, but Logan Cooley was skating towards the net. He had a defender on him, but he turned around. His back was to the goal, and he fired a shot through his own legs backwards, and he missed the net. Didn't happen, but it was close. But, Alex, we got to talk about the biggest news with the Utah Hockey Club. Star Dylan Guenther suffered what was called a lower body injury. We don't really know the extent. It comes from a collision in that Florida Panthers game. But he's going to be out for an extended period of time. All we know is that it's not season-ending, according to Coach Tourney. But it sounds like he will miss a significant chunk of time. Now, he is their leading goal scorer. I believe he is third on the team in points. He's either second or third. So that is a big loss for the Utah Hockey Club, losing one of their brightest young stars.
It is a big loss, and I'm curious to see who's going to step up now that Dylan Guenther, of course, is out.
Yeah.
As far as the injury goes, it's concerning that it is indefinitely, but it is also positive that it's not season-ending.
Right.
And you have that opportunity to get him back.
We know
before the
enough
season.
that he will be back, it sounds like. But this, I mean, goal scoring is what Utah has struggled with lately. I mean, 2 goals last night. 1 goal against the Panthers, 2 goals against the Stars. They did put up 5 over Calgary. Only 1 point against the Oilers before that, and 2 points against the Kraken. So, yeah, obviously to lose your top goal scorer is going to really hurt. And then you look at the position that the Utah Hockey Club is in right now as far as the playoff picture and things like that. And this could be a devastating loss for a team that's literally right on the cusp of making the playoffs. I believe they're 4 or 5 games out from the playoff picture in their division. So I hope that this doesn't kind of crumble their season, but it is encouraging to see them respond and get the win last night against the Sharks. I know the Sharks aren't a great team, but it's
a good win.
It's something to watch.
It's a good win to build.
Yeah, it's good to get the win at home, but this is a storyline to watch over the next couple of weeks to see how the Utah Hockey Club looks with no Dylan Guenther. It does mean more time for Spicy Tuna. He's come in. He's played the last handful of games, and the players say that he's bringing an energy that they didn't really have before. So interesting to see there. He still is, I believe he's yet to score a point on the season. He had some shots last night, got pretty close, but still nothing there. Back in action today for the Utah Hockey Club. They play the New York Islanders at 7. Pregame will be at 6 here on the Zone. This is part of their 7-game home stretch. So it's nice to be at home for a while.
Yeah, so far 1-1 on the home stretch. Again, do you need to continue to figure out how to win at home? There's been talk about how their home barn hasn't been, the performances at the home barn and the results at the home barn haven't been kind of what this team wants at the moment. And so what better opportunity to be able to string along a couple of wins and improve your home record than with 7 straight. And it starts tonight with New York.
It does. And I believe Utah beat the Islanders. Well, I know they beat them earlier in the year. I'm trying to find it.
It was a 5-4 overtime win for the second game of the season.
Right. I was going to say, I couldn't remember if it was their second or third game of the season, but I did remember that was a big win. Yeah, 5-4 overtime win. So, yeah, we'll see how things look tonight. I don't think they've played since then. But another quick topic here in our 5 minutes of segment, a little bit of NFL head coaching news. Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, one of the most coveted coaches of this head coaching cycle, he has completed his interview with the Bears. Of course, since he is still in the playoffs, he can only do virtual interviews right now. And I always think that's an interesting dynamic because they have a lot of work to do if they want to try and, perform in the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. But then these guys are doing interviews for head coaching positions. But Ben Johnson has completed his interview with the Bears. Sounds like all things went well. He is also one of the favorites to land the job in Jacksonville down there with Trevor Lawrence. We'll see how that goes. But some kind of breaking news, nothing big has happened, but it sounds like, Alex, Deion Sanders might have some interest in the Raiders head coaching job.
Look, if Deion, what draft pick are they? Are they second or third?
Oh,
no. They fell.
they
I
fell
think
a little
they fell
bit.
all the way to 8th, right? If they've fallen that far, I'm gonna be interested to see.
They're 6th.
Oh, they're 6th.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
gonna be
behind
interested
Jacksonville.
to see if they decide to make a deal and trade up a little
To get
bit
Shedeur.
to see if he gets Shedeur or Travis.
Yeah, one of them, yeah. That would be so funny.
And of course, that's if Deion takes the job.
Right. So Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, New England, and Jacksonville all pick in front of Las Vegas. I could see Tennessee, Cleveland, New York being players for a quarterback, but not the Patriots or the Jags. So you're looking at 3 teams in front of the Raiders that may take Shedeur Sanders. We'll see. It's interesting what Tom Brady has done as a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders. It sounds like he has come in and had a lot of influence and a lot of say over the last couple of weeks. It sounded like he was the one that recommended that they fire Antonio Pierce and then general manager Tom Telesco. I wonder if Fox is going to step in and say, hey, man, you're doing a little too much. We can't have you calling games while you're calling shots behind the scenes as well.
They're not going to do anything.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Something's going to have to give because it sounds like he is, of course, this is all rumors from social media, but from what I've read online, it sounds like he's calling the shots right now for Vegas.
And he's also gone as far as reaching out to Bill Belichick.
Yeah, he reached out to Bill Belichick, tried to get him to leave UNC. Also, apparently, Bill Belichick has an out in his contract before June. So theoretically, if somebody were to offer him an NFL job, he could get out of his contract with North Carolina. So that's a funny situation to monitor. And then Tom Brady, of course, is playing a big hand as far as picking the next head coach, probably general manager, and maybe even next quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. So
I would not be surprised if Deion takes the job, man.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, it's a fun situation to watch because his 2.5 sons left Colorado to go to the NFL.
Emphasis on the half.
Yeah, emphasis on the half. 2.5 sons left Colorado to go to the NFL. So it's like, why would you stay at Colorado if you were Deion? I mean, if I were in his shoes and I had the chance to follow one of my kids and be their head coach in the NFL, like, heck yeah.
If that happens, though, imagine what's going to happen to that Colorado program.
Oh, they're going to.
All the 5-star recruits he just picked up, all the transfers he just picked up, like what do you do, man? You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So we'll keep our eye on that. I do like talking about the head coaching cycle. I think there's always some fun storylines there. So we'll have some more news on that over the next week. I'm sure some of these positions are going to get filled. We got to take a break. Coming up next, we'll wrap things up. We've got some, we'll preview some things we've got on the slate today. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Putting a bow on this thing, Alex. Sorry. Got out to a hot start because I can't wait to talk about Cooper Flagg.
What's Cooper Flagg up to?
Duke is up 79-61 right now, 6 minutes left. Duke over Notre Dame. Cooper Flagg has 38 points in this one. 11 of 14 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, and he's got some monster dunks. He's fun.
Right now that we're on the topic of college basketball, and yes, Cooper Flagg is phenomenal, of course. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. But you know who I've been massively disappointed by so far?
Who's that?
The BYU basketball team.
Yeah, rough start to Big 12 play for BYU. I believe they're 1-3.
Yes.
In conference play.
And look,
we'll see if they turn things around.
It's
Igor
still
Deming
early.
Was supposed to be a top 5 pick. We'll see.
It's still early. You know, I think this team is still trying to figure out and mesh together, but for all the hype that surrounded them, I feel like they haven't met it yet.
We'll see what Kevin Young can do.
Absolutely.
See if they can turn this around. Big day today here on the Zone. As I mentioned earlier, the Jazz are playing the Suns today at 3. The pregame, as always, an hour before. That will be at 2 here on 97.5 and 1280. Then coming up later, we're going to have Utah State hosting Boise State in the biggest game of the Aggies season so far. That's going to be a very fun game. Tip-off is at 7. Pregame will start at 6:30 here on the Zone.
That's a team that I have not been disappointed by.
Oh, no, Utah State's been great.
They have been so good.
They're on a roll.
They're so fun to watch. And I hope that they can continue it tonight against Boise.
Then we've also got the Utah Hockey Club pregame at 6 and puck drops at 7. That's our schedule today here on the Zone. Thanks for making us a part of your Saturday morning. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.